This video I just want to show you briefly how to use the move tool and the transform controls of the move tool. So when I select the move tool, which is in the top left corner here of Photoshop, I like to turn on a couple of things. One is auto select and the other is show transform controls. The reason why I turn these both on, and they're defaulted to be off, is because then I have access to what's called the transform option. So then I can make things bigger or smaller. So for example, this picture in the background originally was like this size. But because I have it set up, this move tool set up, when I click on this picture, it automatically selects it in my layers area, and it brings up the transform options so that I can make it bigger or smaller. Transform does more than that. We can rotate, we can distort it, but generally I just use it for making it bigger or smaller. So the move tool is really nice. Basically the only thing it really does is move a layer around, but because I've turned on transform controls and the auto select option, I can now make adjustments to an image or to some text or something like that. Notice when I turn both of these off, when I click somewhere, like let's say I want to drag the picture of the dog. Well, when I start clicking and dragging, I'm not clicking and dragging the dog because the sunset dog text layer is selected. And so I have to actually choose which layer I want to move around, and that's how I can actually move a layer. But when I have auto select on, then I just click on whatever layer it is that I want to select, and then I can move that layer around. So I like auto select on and then show transform controls because now I can actually make it bigger or smaller. So when you go from the corners, and I almost always am going to drag from the corners to make something bigger or smaller. I'm going to start dragging, but notice how I can squish this image. I don't want to squish this image. I don't want to stretch it. Maybe that is what you want to do, but rarely do you want to do this. You need to have a good reason for it. Almost always you want to make sure that it stays what we call proportional. So in order to make sure it stays proportional, you hold down the shift key, and then when you click and drag, it will make sure that it stays proportional. It doesn't get distorted at all. So you hold down the shift key. After you start clicking and dragging, hold down the shift key, and then you let go of the mouse first, and then you can let go of the shift key. And then again, I can reposition this wherever I need to. And then because it's got this X through it, I go ahead and hit the Enter key. Now, the other way to do this is, again, if I have the layer selected, if I don't have auto select and show transform controls on, if I want to make this picture smaller or bigger, I need to hit Command T with the layer selected in my layers palette, and then I can do the same thing from the corner. Command T is the shortcut to get to the transform tool or the transform controls. So Command T, and then again, I don't usually use that. I just have my move tool that's set to auto select and show transform controls, and that way I can have access to those controls without having to hit Command T and click on the right layer and that sort of thing. So it saves me time, and that's how I prefer to do it. So that is the move tool and the transform controls or transform tool.